Hello, online pipe community. Ethan, Parsimonious Piper here. Today we have Morsels for Mental Manducation. We're going to talk a little bit about majorities. But first, in a 3-star Pipe by Lee carved figurehead. Now, I had originally called this a Viking based on that looking kind of like the wings on some of the Norse hats, but looking at the facial features, a viewer said, you know what? That really looks much more like a Chinese warrior. And I think he's right. So, in my carved Chinese warrior, I am smoking the only blend that I smoke in this, and that is Pirate Cake. I do not normally dedicate pipes to blends. This one is, however, because this was a gift from none other than the wonderful Jeffrey Alton Carter. And he said he smoked heavy Englishes in it because the guy he got it from smoked heavy Englishes in it. So I'm just carrying on. This is the heaviest English I can think of. We very often hear today, especially in the news, that something, whether it's a Supreme Court decision or even just something some politician has said, is a threat to our democracy. Well, problem is we don't have a democracy here in the U.S., and that's thrown around a lot, but the truth is our Constitution guarantees us a republic. Now, in the modern usage of those two words, they are mostly interchangeable. When we think of, what do we think of a democracy as a country, and we think, well, then what's a republic? A lot of times we list the same countries, and that's because we have come to think of, in some ways, a democracy as being a republic. What's the difference? Because our founders were terrified of democracy. Democracy is majority rule. Our Constitution, however, is very much anti-majoritarian. J.S. Mill, in On Liberty, talked about the tyranny of the majority and how that tyranny was enforced very often through popular and even elected governments. There's a joke going around, or that has gone around. Just a second, my table just shifted. There's a joke that has gone around that democracy is 2 wolves and a sheep voting on what's for lunch. There's a lot of truth to that. It's just strict majority rules. That in fact is what democracy is. A republic, on the other hand, as it was understood at the time of the writing of our Constitution, a republic was a government that had an appointed or elected head of state rather than a hereditary monarch, and that had a representative government. People did not vote on things directly. They represented themselves, and those representatives voted on whatever government policies. So there is a difference. The other major difference was that, in their mind, a distinguishing characteristic of a republic was that it was constrained by something. In our case, constrained by the Constitution. And so when Ben Franklin was supposedly asked, what kind of government have you provided us? He said, a republic, if you can keep it. Nobody knows if the story is true, but it's made its rounds for a couple hundred years. So we are, in fact, a republic. Now, I said that our founders were terrified of majority rule. How do we know that this is true? Well, look at the Constitution itself. There are a number of things in the Constitution that are anti-majoritarian. First of all, look at our legislature. Our legislature is bicameral. It has two houses. The House of Representatives is apportioned by population among the states. Your big states like New York and California have lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of representatives, and your tiny states could have just one based on their population. Everybody gets at least one, but they may only have one. And in the House, the majority rules. However, the Senate doesn't work that way. The Senate, every state gets 2 representatives regardless of size. Now, a lot of big states have complained about this. Well, but this is exactly the reason that the Senate was designed this way, so that a small state, small in population, can't just be railroaded by the larger states. So the Senate has 2 representatives per state. And that's why. It's to slow down and to be able to block the majority from doing things that harm small states or the rights of the minority. A very wise system, quite frankly. Another thing in the Constitution that runs in that direction, that is anti-majoritarian, is the way we select our president. Our president is selected by an electoral college who is chosen by the states. Each of the states have their own rules as to how those electors are chosen. That's because the states have that right. They're allowed to choose whether all of their allocated electors go to whoever has the majority vote in the state, or whether they're apportioned based on the proportion of votes in the state. But that has some impact on slowing down the will, so to speak, of the most populous states. Because even though your electors are selected in the same apportionment as your members of the House of Representatives, presidential politics works a little bit differently than representative politics. And a lot of states that do send a number of representatives from one party may actually tend to vote for the presidential candidate of the other party. It's just the way it works. And most states are all or nothing on the electoral votes. So anyway, the way it's set up and the way it has always been, those are 2 safeguards against majoritarian rule. Some people will mention the Supreme Court as another, but that was not an original intent. The original intent of the Supreme Court, if you actually read the Constitution, nowhere includes deciding whether laws are constitutional or not. That authority was assumed by the Supreme Court in the 1800s, and it was not challenged in any significant way. And so that has stood for a couple hundred years. And as it exists right now, yes, the Supreme Court is another another protection against the majority just trampling all over the rights of the minority. But as Madison wrote in Federalist number 10, he also talked about that the Constitution was in fact a protection against the federal government just doing the bidding of an overwhelming majority. And so the founders were very clear in what their intent for the Constitution was, and that was not to have majority rule. It was to allow the majority free reign with limitations. Those limitations protected the rights of the minority and the rights of the individual. This, in fact, is what what the Senate was all about. What the Bill of Rights is all about. It limits what the federal government can do, both to the states and to the individual. Supposed to, anyway. We've kind of strayed from that vision. Personally, I think it would be nice to see more people getting back to it. But at any rate, that was just our little brief, something to think about for today. Unlike a lot of countries, the U.S. is not. It's not just a democracy. There are significant limitations and provisions to make sure that the minority has a voice. With that, light something you like. Do it in a pipe you like. Enjoy your afternoon.